Raymond Eddie Cochran was an American musician. Cochran's rockabilly songs, such as "Come On Everybody," "Somethin Else," and "Summertime Blues," captured teenage frustration and desire in the late 1950s and early 1960s. He experimented with multitrack recording and overdubbing even on his earliest singles, and was also able to play piano, bass and drums. His image as a sharply dressed and good-looking young man with a rebellious attitude epitomized the stance of the 50s rocker, and in death he achieved an iconic status. Cochran was born in Minnesota and moved with his family to California in the early 1950s. He was involved with music from an early age, playing in the school band and teaching himself to play blues guitar. In 1955, he formed a duet with the guitarist Hank Cochran, and when they split the following year, Cochran began a songwriting career with Jerry Capehart. His first success came when he performed the song 20 Flight Rock in the movie The Girl Can't Help It, starring Jayne Mansfield. Soon afterwards, Liberty Records signed him to a recording contract. Cochran died aged 21 after a road accident, whilst travelling in a taxi in Chippenham, Wiltshire, during his British tour in April 1960, having just performed at Bristol's Hippodrome Theatre. Though his best-known songs were released during his lifetime, more of his songs were released posthumously. In 1987, Cochran was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. His songs have been covered by a wide variety of recording artists. Early life: Cochran was born in Albert Lea, Minnesota, as Edward Raymond Cochran. His parents were from Oklahoma, and he always said in interviews that he was from Oklahoma. He took music lessons in school but quit the band to play drums. Also, rather than taking piano lessons, he began learning guitar, playing the country music he heard on the radio. Music career: early career: in 1953, Cochran's family moved to Bell Gardens, California. As his guitar playing improved, he formed a band with two friends from his junior high school. He dropped out of Bell Gardens High School in his first year to become a professional musician. During a show featuring many performers at an American Legion Hall, he met Hank Cochran. Although they were not related, they recorded as the Cochran brothers and began performing together. They recorded a few singles from Echo that were not successful but helped to establish them as a performing act. Eddie Cochran also worked as a session musician and began writing songs, making a demo with Jerry Capehart, his future manager. In July 1956, Eddie Cochran's first solo single was released on the Crest label. It featured the rocking Skinny Jim, and is now regarded as a rockabilly classic. In the summer of 1956, Boris Petrov asked Cochran if he would appear in the musical comedy film The Girl Can't Help It. He agreed and sang a song called 20 Flight Rock that was featured in the movie. Later career: in 1957, Cochran starred in his second film, Untamed Youth, and also had his first hit, Sittin' in the Balcony, one of the few songs he recorded that were written by other songwriters. 20 Flight Rock was written by AMI staff writer Ned Fairchild. Fairchild, who was not a rock and roll performer, merely provided the initial form of the song, and the co-writing credit reflects Cochran's changes and contributions to the final product. In November 1957, Liberty Records released Cochran's only album released during his lifetime, Singin' to My Baby. The album included Eddie's first hit Sittin' in the Balcony. There were only a few rockers on this album, and Liberty seemed to want to move Cochran more into the pop music direction. In 1958, however, Cochran seemed to find his stride in the famous teenage anthem Summertime Blues. With this song, Cochran was established as an important influence on music in the late 1950s, both lyrically and musically. The song, released on Liberty recording No. A 55144, charted at No. A8 on August 25, 1958. Cochran's brief career included only a few more hits, such as Come On, Everybody, Somethin Else, Teenage Heaven, and his posthumous UK #1 hit 3 Steps to Heaven. Eddie Cochran remained popular in the UK throughout the 1960s and scored more posthumous hits such as My Way, Weekend, and Nervous Breakdown. Another aspect of Eddie's short but brilliant career is his work as backup musician and producer. He played guitar on tracks by Ray Stanley, Lee Denson, Baker Knight, Bob Denton, Galen Denny, Don Deal, Troisky, Mike Clifford, Paula Morgan, Jody Reynolds, Johnny Burnett, Win Stewart, Ernie Freeman, Elroy Peace, Derry Weaver, Eddie Daniels, Jewel Akins, John Ashley, Jack Lewis, Lynn Marshall, Jess Willard, The Holly Twins, Barry Martin and Al Casey. In 1959 he played lead for Skeets MacDonald at Columbia's studios for You to See Grandma Rock, and Heartbreaking Mama. In a session for Gene Vincent in March 1958 he contributed his trademark low bass voice as heard on Summertime Blues. The recordings were issued on the album A Gene Vincent record date. In early 1959, two of Cochran's friends, Buddy Holly and Ritchie Valens, along with a Big Bopper, were killed in a plane crash while on tour. Eddie's friends and family later said that he was badly shaken by their deaths, and he developed a morbid premonition that he would also die young. It was shortly after their deaths that he wrote and recorded a tribute to them called 3 Stars. He was anxious to give up life on the road and spend his time in the studio making music, thereby reducing the chance of suffering a similar fatal accident while touring. However, financial responsibilities required that he continue to perform live, and that led to his acceptance of an offer to tour the United Kingdom in 1960. UK tour and death. On Saturday, April 16, 1960, at about 11:50 p.m., while on tour in the United Kingdom, 21-year-old Cochran died as a result of a traffic accident in a taxi travelling through Chippenham, Wiltshire, on the A4. The speeding taxi blew a tyre, lost control, and crashed into a lamp post on Rowden Hill, where a plaque now marks the spot. No other car was involved. Cochran, who was seated in the center of the back seat, threw himself over his fiancée copyrightee Sharon Sheeley, to shield her, and was thrown out of the car when the door flew open. He was taken to St Martin's Hospital, Bath, where he died at 4:10 p.m. the following day of severe head injuries. Cochran's body was flown home and his remains were buried on April 25, 1960, at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Cypress, California. Songwriter Sharon Sheeley and singer Gene Vincent survived the crash, Vincent sustaining lasting injuries to an already permanently damaged leg that would shorten his career and affect him for the rest of his life. The taxi driver, George Martin, was convicted of dangerous driving, fined £50, disqualified from driving for 15 years, and sentenced to prison for 6 months. His driving license was reinstated in 1969. The car and other items from the crash were impounded at the local police station until a coroner's inquest could be held. David Harmon, a police cadet at the station who would later become known as Dave D of the band Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick and Tick, taught himself to play guitar on Cochran's impounded Gretsch. Earlier in the tour, the same guitar had been carried to the car for Cochran by the 12-year-old Mark Feld, later known as Mark Bolan of T-Rex, who would himself die in a car crash in 1977. A memorial stone to commemorate Eddie Cochran can be found in the grounds of St Martina unregistered trademark S Hospital in Bath. The stone was restored in 2010 and can be found in the old chapel grounds at the hospital. A memorial plaque can also be found next to the sundial at the back of the old chapel. Posthumous releases and honors. A posthumous album, My Way, was released in 1964. Cochran was a prolific performer, and the British label Rockstar Records has released more of his music posthumously than had been released during his life. The company is still looking for unpublished songs. One of his posthumous releases was 3 Stars, a tribute to J.P. Richardson, better known as the Big Bopper, and Eddie's friends Buddy Holly and Ritchie Valens, who had all died together in a plane crash just 1 year earlier. Written just hours after the tragedy by disc jockey Tommy D, it was recorded by Cochran 2 days later. His voice broke during the spoken lyrics about Valens and Holly. In 1987, Cochran was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. His pioneering contribution to the genre of rockabilly has also been recognized by the Rockabilly Hall of Fame. Several of his songs have been re-released since his death, such as Come On Everybody, which was a number 14 hit in 1988 in the UK. Rolling Stone ranked him number 84 on their 2003 list of the 100 greatest guitarists of all time. Cochran's life is chronicled in several publications, including Donia Unregistered Trademark T Forget Me The Eddie Cochran Story, written by Julie Mundy and Daryl Hyam, and 3 Steps to Heaven, written by Bobby Cochran. On June 2, 2008, The Very Best of Eddie Cochran was released by EMI Records. On September 27, 2010, the mayor of Bell Gardens, California declared October 3, 2010 to be Eddie Cochran Day to celebrate the famous musician who began his career when living in that city. Style and influence: one of the first rock and roll artists to write his own songs and overdue tracks, Cochran is credited also with being one of the first to use an unwound third string in order to bend notes up a whole tone, an innovation that has since become an essential part of the standard rock guitar vocabulary. Artists such as Joan Jett and the Black Hearts, the Rolling Stones, Bruce Springsteen, Van Halen, Tom Petty, Rod Stewart, Motor Paragraph Red, Humble Pie, Commander Cody and his Lost Planet Airmen, Lemmy Kilmister, The Head Cat, The Damned, UFO, T-Rex, Stray Cats, Brian Setzer, Cliff Richard, The Who, The Beach Boys, The Beatles, Blue Cheer, Led Zeppelin, The White Stripes, The Sex Pistols, Rush, Buck Owens, Tiger Army, Dion, Simple Minds, Guitar Wolf, Paul McCartney, Alan Jackson, The Move, Dick Dale, Teenage Head, Keith Richards and the Expensive Winos, and Jimi Hendrix have covered his songs. It was because Paul McCartney knew the chords and words to 20 Flight Rock that he became a member of the Beatles. John Lennon was so impressed that he invited Paul to play with his band The Quarrymen. Jimi Hendrix performed Summertime Blues early in his career, and Pete Townshend of The Who was heavily influenced by Cochran's guitar style. Glam rock artist Mark Bolan had his main Les Paul model refinished in a transparent orange to resemble the Gretsch 6120 guitar played by Cochran, who was his music hero. He was also a heavy influence on the nascent rockabilly guitar legend Brian Setzer from Stray Cats, who plays a 6120 almost like Cochran, whom he portrayed in the film La Bamba. Cochran is easily one of the first musicians, alongside Chuck Berry, whom the late Rory Gallagher was always quick to mention as a strong influence on his musical taste and performance. In 1988, Come On Everybody was used by Levi Strauss & Company in an advertisement to promote its 501 Jeans catalog and re-released as a promotional single, hitting no. 14 in the UK charts. The advertisement told a story of how the narrator, Sharon Shealy, attracted Cochran by wearing her 501s. Wayne Smith's Jamaican rhythm Under Me Slang Teng was an attempt to recreate a riff from Somethin Else. It is widely considered to have sparked the digital reggae revolution. Guitars: when playing with Hank Cochran, Eddie Cochran played a Gibson L4CR top acoustic guitar with a Florentine cutaway and a Diamond Rhythm Chief pickup, which can be clearly seen in the Cochran brothers' publicity photograph. Later, Cochran moved to a 1955 Gretsch 6120 Chet Atkins G brand Western model, which Eddie had modified. He replaced the neck-positioned Diamond Innersonic pickup with a black-covered Gibson P90 pickup. He also used Martin acoustic guitars. Filmography, discography, chart positions are from the Billboard Hot 100. U.S. singles: 2 Blue Singin' Stars BW Mr. Fiddle as the Cochran Brothers, Your Tomorrows Never Come BW Guilty Conscience as the Cochran Brothers, Walkin' Stick Boogie BW Rollin' as Jerry Capehart featuring Cochran Brothers, Tired and Sleepy BW Fool's Paradise as Cochran Brothers, Skinny Jim BW Half Loved, Sittin' in the Balcony BW Dark Lonely Street Chart No. 18, One Kiss BW Mean When I'm Mad, Drive-In Show BW Am I Blue Liberty F55087 Chart No. 82, 20 Flight Rock BW Cradle Baby, Genie 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 BW Pocketful of Hearts Chart No. 94, Teresa BW Pretty Girl, Summertime Blues BW Love Again Liberty F55144 Chart No. 8, Come On Everybody BW Don't Ever Let Me Go Liberty F55166 Chart No. 35, Teenage Heaven BW I Remember Liberty 55177 Chart No. 99, Somethin Else BW Boll Weevil Song Liberty 55203 Chart No. 58. Hallelujah I Love Her So BW. Cradle Baby, Cut Across Shorty BW 3 Steps to Heaven, Lonely BW Sweetie Pie, Lonely BW Weekend, US albums, Singin' to My Baby Liberty LRP 3061, 12 of his biggest hits Liberty LRP 3172 reissued as the Eddie Cochran Memorial Album, Never to Be Forgotten Liberty LRP 3220, Summertime Blues Sunset SUS 5123, Legendary Masters Series United Artists UAS 9959, The Very Best of Eddie Cochran, Great Hits, On the Air, The Best of Eddie Cochran, Greatest Hits Curb Records, Singin' to My Baby. And Never to Be Forgotten Emmy Records, UK albums, Singin' to My Baby, The Eddie Cochran Memorial Album, Cherished Memories, My Way, The Legendary Eddie Cochran, The Many Sides of Eddie Cochran, 20th Anniversary Album, The Best of Eddie Cochran Liberty EMI UK. The Very Best of Eddie Cochran, Eddie Cochran Story, References. Bibliography, Bobby Cochran with Susan Van Heck, 3 Steps to Heaven, The Eddie Cochran Story Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Hal Leonard 2003. ISBN 0-634-03252-6, Julie Mundy and Daryl Hyam, Don't Forget Me, The Eddie Cochran Story. Edinburgh, Mainstream Publishing Company 2000. ISBN 0-8230-7931-7, Sharon Shealy, Summertime Blues. Ravenhawk Books. Release date June 30, 2010. ISBN 978-1-893660-18-2. External links, Eddie Cochran at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.